All right, welcome developers. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the essential encryption and password settings inside PC Guard. Look, if you want to properly lock down your application, you have to understand these options. They're absolutely your first line of defense. So here's what we've got on tap. We'll kick things off with the big picture idea, layered security. Then we'll get hands-on and configure three key features. That's application encryption, module validation, and password protection. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways. Sound good? Let's jump in. First up, let's talk about layering your security. This is really the core philosophy behind PC Guard. The idea here is that there's no single magic bullet for protection. Instead, it's all about using multiple, overlapping features to build this really robust defense for your application. First up, let's talk about layering your security. This is really the core philosophy behind PC Guard. The idea here is that there's no single magic bullet for protection. Instead, it's all about using multiple, overlapping features to build this really robust defense for your application. First up, let's talk about layering your security. This is really the core philosophy behind PC Guard. The idea here is that there's no single magic bullet for protection. Instead, it's all about using multiple, overlapping features to build this really robust defense for your application. Okay, let's get into our first technical layer, application encryption. Now, the main goal here is super straightforward. We're trying to protect all your hard work from malicious patching. So what's actually happening under the hood here? Well, PC Guard essentially scrambles your application's code and data, so it's distributed in a totally encrypted state. This makes it a real nightmare for anyone trying to tamper with it. And the best part? The decryption happens automatically right in memory, but only when a legitimate user runs your program. So for your end user, it's completely invisible. But for an attacker, it's a huge roadblock. Now, you've got some really granular control here. Let's look at the options. You can choose to encrypt specific parts, your code sections, data sections, relocations, resources, and even the import directory. There's also this option for the internal overlay. That's data that gets attached to the end of your file. But just a heads up, this particular one requires you to have advanced overlay management, or AOM, enabled first.
Okay, so a common instinct, right? You see all these options and you just want to check every single box for maximum security. But what happens if you do that and all of a sudden your application just fails to run?
Yeah, this is where you can run into a little snag. The documentation is pretty clear on this.
Some programs, especially if they do some custom resource handling or use other packers, just won't work with every single encryption option turned on. And the telltale sign is this specific error message: file damaged. If you see that pop up, it's a huge clue that your encryption settings are probably a little too aggressive for your app. So, how do you fix it? Well, it's basically a process of elimination. The official tip is to start by turning off encryption for the data, code, or resource sections. Just uncheck them one by one and see which one makes the error go away. It's a simple but really effective troubleshooting step. Okay, just two last but really important notes on encryption. First, by default, PCGuard doesn't encrypt your icons and version info. This is a good thing. It helps keep everything compatible with the operating system. And second, and this is super important, even if you go in and turn off all of those options we just talked about, PCGuard still encrypts some essential parts of your application. So you always have a solid baseline of protection no matter what. All right, let's move on to our next layer of security: module validation. Now, this is a bit of a more advanced tactic, and it's all about ensuring the integrity of your code. So, what is this thing exactly? Well, think about it like this. At runtime, PCGuard does an integrity check on the modules, like your DLLs, that your application imports. This is a huge deal because it's designed to stop a pretty common attack where someone tries to swap out one of your legitimate DLLs with a malicious one. If PCGuard sees that mismatch, it just stops the whole execution right there.
Okay, now for a really critical warning. Listen up. This feature is meant for your own custom modules, or maybe some specific third-party libraries that you ship with your app. Whatever you do, do not select Windows system modules for validation. Seriously, if you try to validate core OS files, you can cause some major instability and you could stop your application or maybe even the whole system from running correctly. So just don't do it.
And there's one more important thing to remember here, just a practical point. For this validation to actually work, PCGuard needs to analyze the modules when you're protecting the app. That means the DLLs you want to validate have to be sitting in the output directory when you run PCGuard. And then, of course, you have to ship those exact same modules with your final application. All right, let's switch gears a bit. We've been talking about background protection, but now let's talk about a feature your users will actually see and interact with: password protection. This is all about putting a simple, universal gate in front of your application.
The way this works is super simple and absolute. When you turn this on, the program is going to ask for a password every single time it runs. I mean it. It doesn't matter if the app is in a demo, if it's locked, or if it's fully unlocked with a valid license. This password prompt always shows up, right at the start.
And setting it up? It honestly couldn't be easier. It's just 3 quick steps. 1, you check the password protection box. 2, you set your password string. And 3, and this is a really nice touch for some extra security, you can optionally choose to use that same password as part of the file encryption key itself. Just a couple of quick rules you got to remember when you're setting your password. It needs to be at least 6 characters long. It is case sensitive, so watch out for that. And the great news is you can use this feature with any of the other protection methods PCGuard offers. They all play nicely together. Okay, we have covered a lot of technical ground here. So let's just take a moment to wrap up with the key takeaways, just to make sure we're all on the same page with these configuration settings. So to recap the really important stuff. First, go ahead and use those encryption options to protect against patching. But if you see that file damaged error, you now know what to do. Second, module validation is awesome, but use it only for your custom modules, not for Windows system files. Third, don't forget that logistical step. Your validated modules need to be in the output directory when you're protecting. And finally, password protection is your simple go-to tool for a universal access gate on every single launch. And that really brings us to the main challenge, right? It's not about just turning on every single feature. It's about finding that perfect combination for your project. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. How are you going to combine these security layers to strike that optimal balance between rock-solid protection and a great user experience? Thanks for watching.